Lamido Sanusi, the central bank governor, clocks 365 days in office on Friday this week. It's been an eventful 1 year of Lamido's bull run in the Nigerian banking sector and the entire economy. Welcome to today's special edition of your program, Business Morning, here on Channels Television. I am Bosin Amavayo. We thank you very much for joining us at this time. Despite the public holidays, the financial markets are closed. So let's look at the 10-point agenda we're starting today over the next 2 weeks to look at what are the policies, the milestones and achievements of Lamido's 1 year in office. We're starting today with a background to what happened over the last 360 days. And on Friday, we'll do another special edition for you on the show. Lamido's 1 year in office been as eventful as the first year in office of his immediate predecessor, Professor Lamido, who did banking consolidation. Now that we're doing cleansing of the banking system, what's been the impact of the last 12 calendar months under Lamido's Central Bank of Nigeria? Today on this special edition of the show, we're bringing in one of the past presidents of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Femi Ekundayo, who is now the chairman of Resort Group, a financial services company operating here on Broad Street in Nigeria. That's coming next after the break.
Approval, honor it. Okay, and that we have done. It doesn't stop us from taking the provisions, but if you told somebody, if you pay so much, we are waiving so much, has been approved by the board, we say go ahead and implement. We have not told any of these banks not to honor the commitments of the previous management. Okay, we actually have a case of a loan that was taken, a foreign loan, without our consent, which was irregular, which we have asked the bank to honor. We said go ahead and honor it because the person who was lending the money did not know that the management did not get our approval. And we do not want to shake confidence in Nigeria by defaulting on a foreign loan. So we are paying that loan even though it was not regularly procured. As for granting new credits, every regulator everywhere in the world is struggling to encourage banks to lend. It is not Nigeria. And let us understand what a meltdown is. In the United States, the loans aren't growing. In the UK and Europe, the loans aren't growing. The Chancellor has been beating up on banks to lend. They're not lending. You don't take a loss and wipe out your capital and immediately start lending again. It takes time. Okay? We need to support the market through other means. The central bank itself wants to go into direct asset purchase facilities. We're trying to encourage the government to spend. Okay, we're trying to let people understand that we need to borrow to invest in things like power and infrastructure and create jobs, so that the liquidity comes from different angles. What has happened in this country is that the banks in the last few years have taken the burden of the economy, and we need to ease that burden off. Where are the manufacturers? Where is power? Where is infrastructure? Where is government? We need to share out that burden because the financial system is supposed to be a lubricant. It is not the government. And until we get to that point where the central bank is seen as providing an environment in which economic policy can be driven by government and other agencies, we will not go anywhere. I think the central bank saw itself as the provider of growth, as opposed to as the provider of an environment that is conducive to growth. So we keeping inflation in check, we try to bring down interest rates, we try to ensure that we have enough liquidity in the system, but somebody has to do power, somebody has to do infrastructure, somebody has to do construction, somebody has to do manufacturing. If that is done, the economy will grow. Thank you.
Central Bank Chief Lamido Sanusi on the trading floor of the stock exchange, the first time in history, 16th of September 2009. That's the first interaction with the financial markets done by any sitting central bank in Nigeria's 50-year history. Femi Ekundayo, the chairman of Research Group. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio this morning. Let's start with what you've just seen, that video clip on the stock exchange just about less than a year ago. Lamido Sanusi, let's start with part of his statement that, look, someone has to do power. Someone has to provide electricity. The government has to provide fiscal support for monetary policies to work. Look at the past 1 year. How do you think the government has reacted to those pronouncements from Lamido Sanusi himself?
Well, thank you very much. I want to congratulate Lamido in advance for successful completion of 1 year. And reacting to the issue you've mentioned, something that is significant is, for once, it's been appreciated that the financial system is a combination of both the money market and the capital market. And that in itself epitomizes what has been the direction. Unless and until we have that collaboration and cooperation, without any party being over-domineering on the other, the financial system cannot move forward. And talking about even the capital market, the same exercise that is being done in the financial system needs to be done there. On the part of Lamido, it is believed that it was a bull run, no doubt. Probably before ascending the throne as the chief of the CBN, he saw much more than many of us saw. And that probably had influenced the kind of radical approach that he has adopted. We are yet to be able to prove him wrong on most of the steps that have been taken.
You say he's Lamido's bull run. You said he's taken very active steps. You see his first year in office, the past 12 months, similar to what Chukwuma Soludo did also during his first few months in office as well. He came in, banged everybody round on August 2004 with the 14-point bank consolidation agenda, and Lamido came in as well between June and August as well. He also chose the month of August to hit the system with, look, my predecessor did consolidation, I'm here to do cleansing.
I agree with you. I think it's a national phenomenon, a challenge even to governance in this country. Virtually every new leader comes in and puts cold sweat on everybody's spine, everybody's on his toes, but within a short period, the party has started again. And I do hope that people will learn, from the mistakes. Say, be it the president, be it the governor, it goes round. And the only difference has been where people are conscious that you don't have to be carried away by these accolades. Look at Soludo. No sooner than he had done that, the banks got together, spent a lot of money, thrown a party for him, and probably from that time on, he went to sleep. The bank came back doing a recapitalization within 2 years, which ordinarily shouldn't have been allowed. Those are some of evidences of compromising. And I do hope that the new governor will learn lessons. It is important. That's the only way you can move the country forward. Besides, holistic approach is required. Look at what is happening in the US. If you look at what Obama is doing, he's touching every department. And that's why, going by the statement being made there, somebody must do aviation, somebody must do manufacturing. The central bank is in a pivotal position to influence all of this. Thank you.
You also said in your opening statement that we haven't been able to prove Lamido wrong over the past 12 months. What are those policies and some of those actions that he has taken that make you say, well, we haven't been able to prove him wrong? At least starting with the sacking of the CEOs of the first 5 commercial banks.
Now, let's take this with a pinch of salt. When I say we haven't been able to prove him wrong, not many of us, operators, observers, or whatever, knew that that kind of rot was ongoing in the banking industry. I personally felt alarmed when I now read about statements about, chief executives of banks, properties that should belong to the bank, being held in personal names. When we look at people, the fleet of guest houses and whatever. And we also look at relating all of this to the investors' funds. We could have been suspecting, but we didn't see that depth. And it hasn't been controverted that these disclosures by Mr. Governor are wrong. Okay, we also look at what happened in a number of institutions where people were, taking advantage of their position. If we haven't been able to prove that wrong, I mean, we still give him the credit. However, some of us have various views about the approach that was adopted, because at the end of the day, you must have a goal, and that is the overall well-being of the system, and that is the fairness. If you look at that today, suspension of credit, that in itself may not be the best. You're looking at interest rate that has crashed, that is very good. And if it is doing so in one direction, it's still doing so on the lending side. And these are some of the areas that require correction.
If you remember, if you take our mind back to what Lamido's statement was on the 14th of August when he sacked the CEOs of Afribank Union, Finbank, Oceanic, and Intercontinental, he said that these 5 banks, about 3 of them were quite very heavy in the Nigerian financial system. Of course, everybody knows that Union Bank is a major player, one of the oldest financial supermarket we have in Nigeria. Intercontinental and Oceanic were also very large commercial banks with hundreds of billions of naira and billions of dollars as well in foreign money in those commercial banks. So to a very large extent, even as employers of labor, these were very large institutions. So looking at what you talked about as the rot in the system, confirming what Lamido said when he came in, first when he did the Financial Times of London interview, then later supported it with evidences, as we saw 14th of August and thereafter along with the EFCC. Being a banker yourself over time, being a one-time president of the CIBN, you believe that, yes, the system was dirty enough to warrant the kind of surgical operations that Lamido started with on the 14th of August, rather than using Panadol to just cure headache. You believe that we needed a wholesale cleansing, do you?
Well, first of all, Lamido should be sincere to himself to see this first year as a learning process. Being a learning process, obviously mistakes were made. It is true that we are all out to do the cleansing, but you also note that in previous regimes, some cleansing had been done with less damages. Because I do know a number of chief executives that were made to step aside, and they did step aside, and the system continued unruffled. If truly people had done what they are said to have been done, to have done, there are no civil way of doing such things where you just call the board, do this within the next 48 hours, and it will be done, and the system will run. But I think he himself has admitted, I was at one of the bankers' dinners where he also had to address, and he said, people said, no, the way he has been speaking has been affecting, and I do hope that it's been corrected. Those are serious statements.
Look at the issues down the line. I remember having spent a few years in the system myself, at least in more recent Nigeria's banking financial system history. Those instances you mentioned in the early 2000s, just about 10, 12 years ago, where some CEOs were asked to step aside because of their overbearing influence, you see what had been further revelations over the past 12 months of executive, non-executive directors, not just banks, not just the CEOs then, down the line in terms of their culpability and lack of being responsible to the oversight functions over which they were appointed. Then there was a code of good corporate governance that were in place before Lamido came into office that were never implemented by these banks. So, therefore, the question once again is that, do we require a surgical operation this time around rather than just treating the symptoms of, well,